Welcome back, everyone, to the channel. I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here for just a couple minutes of your day. I appreciate you guys. This is a giant video review, sort of. It's kind of like an ultimate review, but it's not, but it is. I just want to talk about Sailor Moon. I actually just finished reading all 12 volumes of this manga. Look how awesome this is. Sailor Moon's GOATED. I'm a big fan of Sailor Moon. I watched it in the 90s, well, early 2000s. I'm not that old, but I grew up watching Sailor Moon and like Dragon Ball and then Bleach and Naruto. I grew up with a lot of anime. Growing up with Sailor Moon was just super goated. And I really did enjoy Sailor Moon so much. Just the aesthetics of it and everything was just cool. And one thing I really liked was just seeing a main character that was just a girl instead of just seeing all the shonen boys. So that was actually kind of cool too. So this, I'm going to try and divide it up in a couple parts. First, we're going to do the story, arcs, characters, and then like why I think Sailor Moon is really good. And I'm going to chalk them all up in each one just to make this more condensed. So the characters in Sailor Moon is quite a bit. You got the main character, Usagi, aka Sailor Moon, and then you have the Sailor Guardians, which is Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, and then you got characters like Tuxedo Mask, then you got characters like Chibiusa, and then Chibi. You got quite a bit. It's a pretty large cast of characters for such a small manga series. Honestly, like if you like, so the '90s shows 200 episodes, but half of those are filler, so they're not actually canon to the story. For 12 volumes, it's quite a bit of characters, and I think the author does a really good job at writing out all these characters, and they all have their own little personalities. Like you can look at each one of them and you can actually figure out which one does what. Like Mercury is intelligent, she's smart, she's the smartest one out of the group, she loves science, and I really like the way that she writes all these characters. And I really do enjoy that premise where you get to know all these characters, and she does little parts in each one of them where you just understand like these characters really do have some good character development throughout just such a short series. And the reason why I keep saying short, because it is only 12 volumes, which I feel like it's quite a bit in some stances, but I feel like for a show that has so many characters, I always thought it was going to be like 20 or even 25 volumes, but it's not. And the way that she wrote it in only 12 volumes is just actually really impressive. So I do think a lot of the characters are really, really good. Obviously, the best one I like is Usagi. I like Usagi so much, she's literally tattooed on my leg. So I'll post a picture of that right there. But it's not just that, but I really do like the Sailor Moon. And I sat back, I sat and like thought about it. I'm like, if I didn't like Usagi, who would I like? And it's kind of tough because I actually like all the characters. I think that all the characters are really well written, and they all have their own little moves, and it's just their techniques and all that. I will say one thing: the difference between the show and the manga, and the manga does it all the time, is when the characters are trying to power up, they always say like "Moon Goddess make up," and they like transform. They always like raise their hands up.
Moon Prism Power Makeup!
It's a very kiddish show in some ways, which is fine. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, like, if you watched it, it's so funny because they do like transformations and they each get their own little moment of a transformation. And I think that's just a really cool little quirk, if you ask me. The story slash what Sailor Moon is about, it's a pretty simple one. You got the main character who just a regular 14-year-old schoolgirl that, you know, she's kind of dumb. She likes to eat a lot. She loves to sleep, but she also just wants a boyfriend. And then she meets this cat named Luna, who just plops her in the world of what she's actually destined to be. And she learns about the silver crystal, the other things in her life. And I think it's a pretty simple story that doesn't have to be explained too much. And you actually learn a lot more throughout the story. Now, am I going to do a little spoilers? Yeah, so spoiler warning for everyone in the future because I'm talking about Sailor Moon. I'm just going to spoil the hell out of all this if I have to. But with it all, I actually think the story is just a pretty straightforward story. I don't think any story needs to be complicated to make it a good story, personally. And I never really tried to think about like what's the story about, if it's actually a good story. I prefer if it's a well-written story, and then I go from there. If the story is well written, I will be heavily invested into it. And that's what I was with Sailor Moon. Right off the rip, I rewatched Sailor Moon last year. I watched Crystal because it's the one that's all canon to the manga. But Crystal didn't have the last 2 arcs. So I was like, oh, that's a little upsetting. So I decided I'm just going to read the manga anyways because I like reading manga. And I like Sailor Moon, so I figured it's like a 2-in-1 package. So I'm just like, let's do it. With the story, almost every single arc and story is revolved around the Silver Crystal, which is fine. Because what she sets it pretty early, the Silver Crystal is like the most powerful thing in the universe. Like, it's actually like kind of insane of how powerful this thing. This literally can like reverse death, and like you could like time warp and stuff. It's just kind of insane of how powerful this item is. And I really enjoy it the more and more you are reading the story. She strings along of how much more powerful it is, because you as a reader, you're just like with Usagi, you don't really know how powerful the Silver Crystal is until it's actually done. And I really enjoy all of that. I just think it's a really fun little story, and I can't complain much about it. Getting into the arcs. Now the arcs are honestly a lot of the same, but there's just more character growth through them. We have 5 arcs, and she's named them all, but what she does in them is they're all just called acts. So you got Act 1 is the beginning, and I think it ends on like Act 60. I could be wrong. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. But those are all like how the arcs are. Like, they all have little names in them, but to me, I just think of them as Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, so on and so forth. But there is 5 separate arcs, and each arc holds small meanings, and you actually get to learn with Usagi, mostly with Usagi and Tuxedo Mask, of their growth through characters and just how big this world is. And that's another thing that was a lot of people talk about, is world building in shows and manga and books and everything, what they like. This does a lot of world building in such a small amount of time. Like, at the end of this arc, at the final arc, the Sailor Guardians are doing universal stuff, and they are in like a different solar system and everything. Like, we are talking about different space, time, and everything like that, which is just insane to think. Now, like, I understand when it comes to world building, you're talking about like, oh, what is this little country doing? What is this development doing with all these different kinds of people and stuff? I understand that premise, I do. But I also look at world building as just like seeing different things. And this is showing us different multi-universal stuff, which is just nuts. And I do enjoy that. The volumes of how the power scaling in Sailor Moon is kind of insane. I used to, when I was younger, I was kind of more ignorant because I was just straight up just that hardcore Dragon Ball fan where I'm like, Goku beats everyone. And then I actually really sat back and like thought about Sailor Moon, and I can actually see why people say Sailor Moon could beat Goku in a fight, because it's like, holy crap, like Sailor Moon is insanely powerful. And with these arcs, you gradually get to more power. And that's kind of the thing, because that's like a theme in this show, isn't like just raw power, it's just love. And that's another reason why I want to do Sailor Moon for the February, because it is the definition of love conquers all. I guess that's the best way to explain Sailor Moon, because that's kind of what it is. Now with this, I do like every arc. I didn't really complain. I think the last arc, it was so fast that I was like, holy crap, and it's finally over. And it was just, so the final arc, none of these arcs, I don't have a favorite. I like all of them, honestly. But with the final arc, it was like a bittersweet thing because it was finally over. And it was just so intense of how powerful it was that I actually wanted to rewatch. So Netflix has the last 2 arcs on like movies. They're like hour and a half long each. And I actually want to watch them just to see the animation of it, because it's been a long time since I've seen the animation of it. And I just was mind blown with just how impactful, how insane it was at the end. So I was like, oh man, I got to watch this. I haven't yet, but I will. With the arcs, I actually liked all the arcs. I didn't think any of these arcs were just boring or anything. They were all fun. And it's just funny how she sets them all up, because it's like they're all teenage girls, so it's like they're like, huh, what's going on with this dark circus? We should go check it out. It just keeps getting weird and weirder. And I'm like, oh yeah. It's just, I don't know, it just always cracks me up. It's just really cute, and I really enjoy that. So the last part of this is, why is it great? I literally say for like this video is Sailor Moon is GOATED. I think Sailor Moon is the godmother of anime. A lot of people say like Dragon Ball is the godfather of anime because shows after Dragon Ball took so much inspiration from Dragon Ball and they just ran it with themselves. It's kind of like the fantasy world with Lord of the Rings, where Lord of the Rings is the godfather of fantasy, and a lot of people took inspiration from Lord of the Rings to start out, and then they just sprinkled in their own things after, which I don't think there's anything wrong. And I think Sailor Moon did a lot of the same thing because during, you gotta think the 90s was really popular for a lot of good anime, but Sailor Moon was actually just like up there. And I think one of the reasons is for one, it's 12 volumes, so it's really short. All the characters are great, and you actually can like figure out which character you like the most. It doesn't even have to be Usagi. You can like any of these characters because they all have personalities. And I think that is so good. I think that's just such a good thing for writing that it's really hard to dislike. And between you and me, if you watch the filler for Sailor Moon, the character development is even more fun because the girls are just girls. I think that's the best part about this is like, as a man and you watch or read manga that is more focused with boys, it's just fun when you read something that is most of the cast are women, and the way that she writes these girls is just you're like, these are girls and they do all these girly things. Like Sailor Venus, literally they were doing like an eclipse and they put on their like goggles to watch the eclipse and they're like, oh, let's make a wish. And Sailor Venus is like, I wish I could be an idol. And Sailor Mercury was like, I wish I can be a scientist. And Sailor Jupiter was like, I wish I can be a boyfriend and own a flower shop. It's just like those kind of things are just so adorable that you just like, it's just good. I never once was like, this is just so bad. Never once. I just think they're so adorable. Those little moments just make the manga just that much more sweeter. It's just, it has the spice, it has the sauce.
Yeah, boy.
So another thing I really like about with the show, why I think it's great, is so a lot of shows usually have main characters as boys, especially action ones. Shonen's really popular for main characters as boys. And I know Sailor Moon is not shonen. I actually thought it was for a long time, but it's not. I think it's Sojo. I think that's what it's under. But it's so much nice. It's just so different. If you want to get an anime, but you're like, oh, I'm just tired of seeing all these main characters as boys, Sailor Moon literally has a main character that is a girl. Mostly it's a female cast, which is really cool in general to see. It's a lot different, honestly. I like it. And the best part is it's an action anime. It's funny. It's comedy. It has everything that a lot of people like for like male characters, but like instead you have female characters, which is, it's just good. It's nice to change it up once in a while. I really like it because I've been reading like just mostly action anime and it's always male MCs. So it's different when you get to see a female MC gets to do the same thing as what the boys are doing. And it's still well written and it's still very feminine in all of its aspects. It's just a really fun show, fun manga, fun everything to read. I recommend everyone to check out Sailor Moon. I think another thing I really enjoy, why I like Sailor Moon, I think it's great, is because the emotional beats of it is really good. Like every anime has really good emotional beats, don't get me wrong, but this does love. Like most anime that have male MCs, usually there's no focus of like love because the guys are always have to be like really tough and masculine around like these girls who they have crush on, and these girls have to like be kind of rude to them. Like everyone knows they're gonna end up being together at the end of the show, and it's so rewarding. But this one is the opposite. Right off the get-go, Usagi and Tuxedo Mask end up being together after like the first couple of chapters because they learn so much about what happens and they fall in love with each other immediately. And throughout the rest of the show, it's their love that carries them through defeating enemies. It's just really fun to read something different like that. And I really like it. I think the emotional beats and I think just the theme that it's love that literally conquers all is so cool. Because, I hear that all the time, but I actually got to witness that. Love literally conquers all in Sailor Moon. And it's just really fun to read that. If you guys made it to the end of this video, I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all my socials down below. And of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay hungry, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.